Welcome to Focus on Why, the podcast where reflection sparks action. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and together we'll explore compelling stories, profound insights, and transformative experiences from inspiring guests worldwide. Feeling lost or unfulfilled? Searching for clarity, purpose, or meaning in your work and life? This podcast invites you on a journey of self-discovery to align your work with your values, shape your future with intention, and create a purposeful way of life. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we dive in, let me share how I can transform your journey as a purpose coach. I specialize in helping you get crystal clear on your why, aligning your passion with your purpose, and crafting a plan to create the life you truly desire. Book a free 30-minute coaching call today. The link is in the show notes. Let's start building your purposeful future together. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Fiona Brennan-Scott. Fiona, welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, it's been a long time overdue, and I can only apologise. I'm not entirely sure how I've got to this many episodes without you being featured on the show. But here we are. We're rectifying it right now.
Great. I'm also delighted. I've heard of the show. I've listened to your book, and it's exciting to be part of your journey and for you to be part of mine.
Well, there we go. And that's what it's all about, collaboration in so many ways. And again, I don't have any expectation of where a conversation is going to go because there are no planned questions other than this first one and the last one. The first one being, what is it you're focusing on right now, Fiona?
Well, right now I'm focusing on something called Breathtaking Communication, the online academy. And that is a creation or a co-creation that was born out of a gap in what I offer to my clients. I'm a voice and speech coach with a background as a speech and drama teacher and time in the corporate world. And I've had several offerings over the years. When I pivoted from being a speech and drama teacher to a voice and speech coach, I coached people one-to-one to help them with audience engagement skills. And then I was invited to do training on that. Actually, I was training simultaneously because I was an associate of an organization that delivered, one of their clients was the Army. They had some councils around the country and the NHS. So I did some training for them, and I was able to offer and confident enough to offer training to organizations as well. So there was training and there was coaching. And then in lockdown, I wrote Breathtaking Communication, Tools and Techniques for Everyday Leaders. And the beauty of a book is it becomes something that's bite-sized and digestible for someone to buy and read. It's got all of my learning, well, a lot of my learning of 22 years in it. So entry level was the book, and then there's individual personalized coaching paid for by individuals or their company, and then there was training. And I've had a really high, what's it called, conversion rate over the years, but I noticed in the last few years that was dropping off. And I would say that's due to, we came out of, do you remember, we came out of COVID. Some of us did really well in business. I was one of them. And we thought now things are going to be great. They're going to get back to normal. But we had the Ukraine war. We've had Israel and Gaza. We've had a lot going on. We've had this cost of living crisis. And so I've been finding that people are finding investing in their training and personal development harder. And I asked myself, what can I do to provide something? Because my vision is to level the playing field so that everyone has a voice and can step up and speak out. What can I do to ensure that this is still possible? And so the online academy was the idea. It means that on a fortnightly basis, people can meet with me for an hour in a group coaching session. And between times, they can go online and do self-led learning. It's over 3 hours of videos that are bite-sized. with homework or things to do between courses, exercises to build up the skills, but then you get the accountability and questions in the group session. So I've been building that up creating that over the last few months. It's in the beta development stage, and I'm hoping to fully launch it in September, which means that when this goes out, it will have been a couple of weeks available to everyone. So I'm very excited about that.
Well, congratulations on the launch, because as you say, it's already out there now. So it's amazing when we revisit our offerings and recognize that there is a gap in terms of the people who can access you and your wisdom and your expertise in this space. You want to level the playing field, this vision that you have for people to be able to step up and speak out. What's the impact of that happening?
Wow. It's huge, isn't it, Amy? If we think about it, who do we have in society that doesn't have a voice? Who's not at the boardroom table? Who's not being heard? And in the classroom, I worked inadvertently at a school for 8 years while I was running my speech and drama studio in one county. I was working at a school in another county, and I noticed a phenomena when I was teaching English that somewhere between the age of 14, 15, boys were speaking up and speaking out more, and girls were withdrawing and saying less. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but since records have been kept, girls academically achieve more than boys year on year in GCSEs and A levels. And so they had a project, and it's probably Britain wide, called Raising Boys' Achievements, or BA. And in the staff room on a Monday morning one week, the head teacher was talking about this, and I had the cheek to raise my hand, and I said, there's a lot of talk about raising boys' achievements, but what I'm seeing is girls who are quite quiet by a certain age. What are we doing to raise girls' voices? And he just looked at me in shock and horror. But to his credit, he did give me permission to found the first speakers club that has run successfully in a school in Britain. And I ran that for 3 years, where students, boys and girls, could come and do a series of speeches and get a certificate that said they had completed these 10 speeches, and those 10 speeches would help them develop all those skills and the confidence to speak up and speak out. So yes, just to answer that question on an adult level, because I imagine most of your audience is adult. In her latest book, Patsy Rodenberg, who is my voice and speech guru, her book, The Woman's Voice, says that in her experience, and she has decades of experience, she's the voice and speech coach at the Royal Guildhall London. Every woman has their voices impaired or has their voices held back, and some men. And so every woman, even if you raise your child or your daughter to speak with power, clarity, and confidence, at some stage in their lives, whether it's school or university or industry, someone will treat them as if they need to speak less or speak softer or be smaller with their voice. And I define voice as, yes, the small v voice, that is what is created in your vocal cords, but the capital V voice, which is your identity. So anyone who has their voice quietened or inhibited is how I would define that, and leveling the playing field is about us sharing the space so that everybody can speak and everyone listens. Wouldn't that be heaven?
And that's an important part of this. It's not just about what you are articulating, it's also about how it's being received and that it's being heard.
Yes, absolutely. Listening is 50% of the deal.
You just distinguished between the small v and the big V for voice, but share what the difference is in your work between voice and speech.
So voice is vocal quality. It would be things like pace and pitch, vocal variety, volume, projection, art, and then speech would be articulation, enunciation, pronunciation. Yeah, in light, to paint a light picture of that. And then there's language, which is the words that we choose. Speech would also be, voice and speech would also be accent.
That's really interesting, the discernment there between voice and speech and how they are absolutely intrinsically working together. We take our voice for granted. I take my voice for granted. I have a podcast. I am able to share what it is that I want to share. It hasn't always been the case, though. I definitely had imposter phenomena about should I launch a podcast right at the beginning of lockdown. So you produced a book in lockdown and I launched the podcast back then. Again, it echoes the digestible bite-size beauty that your book represents. The podcast is, again, similar in terms of it's accessible and it's something that people can do in their own time. They can take on board these learnings, these conversations, they can reflect, they can then choose what it is they do for it. But not everybody has this freedom, as you were just saying, because they might have been inhibited or quietened or shut down. What is it that can be done to help people feel enabled, empowered to step up and speak out?
On a corporate level, in business terms, I think it's very important for people to invest in communication training and workshops. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, from somewhere in England, a senior associate of a law firm reached out to me. And at some stage, some years ago, that law firm recognized that they needed good gender representation in senior leadership. And so across the years, between 7 and 10 people were promoted to that level, including her. And they had a program where they trained and did introductions to people on the firm and on what they do, their specialisms. And the people delivering that were always male, because they said, can people come forward who's willing to do this? And the men stepped up. And I think it's easy to assume that because you give someone the position, you've given them the permission and equipped them. And because this young woman had been given the position, she still had the imposter syndrome, the sense of, I can't do this well. And one of the reasons that happened is because it is a predominantly historically male dominated space. And because the men, wonderful men, had been doing it for years, they were comfortable and they could do it with ease. And so she reached out, and part of my interview is, are you paying for this, or will your company pay? And she said, and this is not uncommon, she didn't feel she could approach her company to pay because she felt that if the people they would expect her. She felt that they would expect her to know how to do it, that they would expect her to be confident, that because she had the position, she could do as much as well as anyone else at that level. And so she came to me quietly and secretly, and that's not uncommon, so that she could show up equally. And she was brilliant, and she did. And I just think, would the leadership have supported her? Would they have happily paid for that because they recognized we've been doing this for generations, for hundreds of years, in fact. Let's give our female staff a boost. And actually, they had reached out this time and they had said, one of the female associates, at least one of you need to volunteer, need to come forward. And she had been the one to say yes. She'd been the only one to say yes. And so there were 6 to 9 others that didn't, that are still needing that help, that step up, that support. And so that would make a big difference. I also think it would make a big difference if schools, I don't know if you're aware of this, Amy, but it's something I learned during my time in that school. When Michael Gove, in his brief period as Minister for Education, was in power, he had the 20% assigned to speaking and listening for GCSE dropped. So somewhere around 2015, 2016, no value was given to speaking and listening in schools. It was all about written communication. And if you know anything about teenagers in schools, they will say when they're going towards an exam, they will question, is this being marked? Do we get points for this? And if it isn't, they will not focus on it. And so you've got a generation of children in schools coming out without that investment in their speaking and listening skills. I also think debating and rhetoric, discussion, public speaking should be a part of every school curriculum, because we want to raise a confident generation of young people who can hold their own in conversation, because otherwise we're going to end up with people who don't know how to argue, meaning follow a line of thinking and hold a point, not argue in the traditional sense of what people think of as an argument.
I didn't realize that that was a case in terms of the reduction or the removal of that element. And it is so critical that we help the next generation and those following, that they are able to have the ability to hold a point, to follow a line of thinking. For you, this breathtaking communication I see as being so key to everything you stand for. But what does the purpose and the why that's sitting behind it, how does that originate, do you think?
I was reflecting on this recently, and I grew up the youngest of 3 girls, and I was never the biggest and the strongest, but I did develop my verbal skills. And I think that was because it meant I could hold my own. And as a result of that, it gave me equality. And so I think that was the first place the passion was born. but I also was taken to the theatre from an early age and saw plays and musicals, and the enchantment of being engaged by people and being audience, and the delight that brings to our lives and the enrichment is just really important to me. And I just think life is short, Amy. And if we are going to take the time of people to speak to them and expect them to listen, we should be engaging. And it should be a time that people walk away from going, I'm glad I was there. And that applies to conference speakers, but also to meetings. If you think about how many people spend hours a week in meetings, meetings are really a place with exciting potential to meet and solve problems and create. And yet, how often do we hear people saying that was a great meeting? Or I've got another meeting coming up, and they're excited or enthusiastic about it. Doesn't happen often. So that's why breathtaking communication, it's communication that the breath being the power, the place of power that comes from good breathing, from deep breathing that powers our voice, but also breathtaking in that it takes your breath away, means, yeah, we're aiming for something that's better than average, because otherwise we could just send an email, we could, make a poster and stick it on a wall somewhere. Why do we speak? Because it has got the maximum potential for engaging and making a difference. What do we remember from history? The great speeches, the words that were spoken. It's speeches that are written down and remembered, not necessarily quotes from books.
And it's so interesting there. I don't know if you're aware of it, but there were some very key words that all begin with the letter E. So we had equality, enchantment, and engagement, which leads to this enrichment. And your enthusiasm around this understanding of what breathtaking communication means that you can aim for something extraordinary. Now, I've added in that word, that final word, but the excitement is there, this enthusiasm, this effervescence, and it is how I would describe you, Fiona.
Thank you. That's not a question, so I'm not going to respond to it.
It's
I'm just
not a
going to
question.
delight in it.
Oh, bless you. But it is something that happens when you get this combination of voice and speech right. And I feel that when you were speaking earlier about the permission and the position, that you then are equipped with these tools, with these ability to be confident, to have that power and clarity coupled with the confidence, to then have the ability to speak what it is that you want to share. And yes, you're right. It is a case of the great speeches in time stay with us. They were crafted for them to make an impact. They weren't just, well, some of them might have been off the cuff, but off the cuff often means that they have been preparing for this moment for a long time. And so an off the cuff speech is the culmination of years of preparation. And that's what is so important here, is that you don't just become a speaker overnight. You don't do this without, as you've clearly shown, these decades of learning and training have come to fruition to now want to share it with others. Because why wouldn't you share this?
Yes. And my joy comes from seeing other people shine. I'm not I'm not naturally wanting to be on a stage and speak. I keynote and I speak because it's a great place to have my message heard, and it's where I get a lot of my training from. But what the real joy for me is being the director, not the actor, is feeding back to people what they're doing well and what they can do even better so that they can accomplish their full potential. My motto that I created for Blarney Studio, it was South Africa. Blarney Studio worked. I dropped it when I came to the UK because it sounded twee. But I developed the motto, never underestimate your ability to enhance and influence the lives of others. And when I became Mad Studio, making a difference in England, I kept that motto. And as I changed to Bespoken, focusing on the business and corporate world, it's still that message of never underestimating your ability to enhance and influence the lives of others, whether that's me saying it to myself or me saying it to my clients. It's about knowing that what we do and what we say really makes a difference to others, and we can make a person's day better or worse by how we show up and how we present ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Words can do so much. I recently released an episode around bullying with a young advocate for mental health, Bryden Duncan, and he had a lifetime, and he's only 20, of bullying. And these words that are spoken are just so powerful and hurtful. And yet, with a different choice of words, the outcome can be very different. You know, you can choose instead to be kind and empowering and uplifting and inspiring, or you can choose to be hurtful and hateful. And it's not just a binary choice here, you know, that there are so many other ways that words have their impact. So your impact, your legacy, Fiona, what is it that you choose to live and leave?
Well, if you picture a jigsaw puzzle, every single one of us is a piece. And if one piece is missing, imagine getting to the end of 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and realizing you only had 999 pieces in the box. The dissatisfaction of that. And every one of us is a piece and completes a picture. And so even though it's very much mixing a metaphor, I had a picture years ago. Do you remember disco glitter balls? And actually, nobody really notices the light. But a glitter ball doesn't work on this unless there's a light shining on it. Nobody really sees that light. And as the glitter ball turns, all of those little pieces of broken glass reflect, like jigsaw puzzles, reflect the light that is shining on them. And I think my desire is to show up as shiny as possible and to catch the light and to reflect that light into the world so that the world is a better place for me, having been in it with my little mirror shaped jigsaw puzzle piece that I am. And yeah, to be kind. And interesting, you spoke about, I did a talk during lockdown that was called Please Be Upstanding, and it was about bullying. And you talk about words and how powerful they are. And we can't take, once we've spoken words, we cannot retract them. They're out there. They're out there forever. We cannot take them back. If we're writing an email or are writing a book or typing something, we can delete, we can rephrase, we can reframe, we can leave it tonight and come back to it tomorrow. But once we've spoken those words, they are out in the universe. So it's about choosing our words carefully, but also empowering others, because bullies don't exist without bystanders. People who are quiet, people who say nothing, who let the bully do their bullying. And so it's about that idea of giving everyone a voice and giving everyone confidence to speak and step up is about those people that hold back, having the courage. Good people who do nothing aren't that good or effective, really, are they? So I think I would like that to be my legacy, is that there are more good and kind people speaking up and speaking out, instead of the privileged and the confident doing it. Like, just giving everyone a little bit of more confidence to do it.
What led you to create that talk, Please Be Upstanding, in lockdown?
Okay, I'm going to tell you the truth, Amy, because that's what I do. I'm a member of the Professional Speaking Association, and I'm a voice and speech coach. And it does feel like preaching to the choir to speak about my area of expertise, because if you're a member of the Professional Speaking Association, you feel that you should either be a professional speaker or you should act like you are. And so to be vulnerable enough to say I need help with public speaking is hard. So if I'm standing up in front of a room full of people who like that, it feels a little superfluous. So during lockdown, I thought, what do I feel passionate about that I could speak on? And I thought of bullying. I've been bullied. When I was a little girl, I spoke to someone as a teenager who pointed out that she remembered me from primary school, and she said, "You used to pinch." And I was absolutely horrified. And I had no recollection of that, although I did recollect being put in the corner, and I couldn't remember why. And so I thought, there isn't a bully. There is a person who bullies, and there is a person who systematically bullies and who continues to bully. But at some stage, somebody obviously sorted me out and I stopped bullying. And the reason I probably started bullying is because I had two older sisters who bullied me. And I thought society, when I started doing research, I realized the light is being shone on victims and how to help victims and to punish victims. But who's shining the light on the person who chooses to bully? And what if we focused our energy on that? It would be like looking at the arsonist and sorting out the arsonist instead of the people who are damaged in the fire. And that just led me to creating this keynote and talking about what can we do, what power do we have to help ourselves. And then it's about the bystanders becoming upstanders, and that suffocates the energy and the flame that the person who bullies has, and then the victim becomes a victor. So that's why it was born out of slight desperation of wanting to speak about something that would land well with people, and that meant I wouldn't be preaching to the choir.
It's so interesting, isn't it, that what may have seemed like a side conversation actually is never a side conversation. Everything is linked. And I'm so glad that I asked you what led you to create that speech, because it shares everything again, that you stand for, and the purpose behind your work and what's important. And again, it's to shine a light on the different elements that may be taken for granted within our everyday communication. And thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing so much about what you do, Fiona. It really has been a wonderful conversation. How could people reach out and contact you, particularly if they want to understand more about the Breathtaking Communication Academy that you have co-created?
Thank you. My website is bespoken.org.uk. My company is called Bespoken. Breathtaking Communication was the book, and then the online academy naturally came from there. I'm on LinkedIn. I love to show up on LinkedIn. I do a video every Thursday and 2 other posts in a week. I'm on Facebook, but I must say I don't really treat that as a business forum. My virtual assistant posts on Instagram for me once a week. So if I'm really honest, I'm not terribly actively active on there because I'm more of a word person than a, video person. So my weekly video is on there. And I'm happy for people to phone me. If they go onto my website, my phone number is on every page. There's a contact page where they can reach out and have a discovery call. We can have a chat and explore what I can do for you in terms of helping you achieve your potential through your communication skills.
Well, all those links are in the show notes as well. So thank you for highlighting where is best for someone to understand more and to step up. Maybe it's that secret, quiet conversation that needs to happen for someone where they can come to you and really then become more of an equal in their workplace with your help. So thank you, Fiona, for highlighting such a key area in our life and work. Have you got some final words for the listener, please?
Yes, I want to say to people who have previously been in a position of privilege and currently are, thank you for when you encourage people who haven't been. Thank you for giving them the space and the time and the encouragement to speak, because there are many champions who want to level the playing field too and help others who, for various reasons, haven't had the opportunity to step up and speak out. And I want to say to those who are holding back, you've only got one life. It's going to be over in a flash. I know that I want to get to the end of my life and to be empty. I don't want a drop left. I want it all given and shared. And I want it just to be done. If I had an epitaph, it would say, here lies Fiona Brennan-Scott. She may be dead, but at least she lived. So I would say, don't hesitate. What do you need to do today to help you make your mark, to help you live a fuller life, to help you live life to the full? We don't get a second chance. And if we do, we might be a butterfly or a cat. So don't hesitate. While you're a human, make the most of what we've got. And actually, one of the things that does differentiate us from our beautiful animal world is the voice and speech and thoughts and expression we've got. So go for it. And if you haven't heard it enough already, never underestimate your ability to enhance and influence the lives of others.
This episode's over, but let's keep the conversation going. How has this episode impacted you? Share your insights, takeaways, and reflections with actions on social media, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback creates powerful ripple effects, helping others to discover its value. Want to dive deeper into purpose? Check the show notes for links on how to work with me, where to buy my new book, Focus on Why, Create a Purposeful Way of Life, available in paperback, ebook and audiobook, and where to sign up for Friday Focus, my weekly newsletter. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.